Hello, welcome to In Depth. For Christians, death is a new beginning, not the end. But do you ever find yourself wondering about the process of dying, what it entails, and what it would be like to find yourself reunited with loved ones in heaven? And what heaven itself will actually be like? Well, joining me on the programme over the next 2 weeks, a fascinating guest who can offer quite a few personal insights. Driving home from a conference in 1989, Don Piper was involved in a terrible crash. He died instantly and had a breathtaking experience of heaven. 90 minutes later, a minister felt he should stop and pray by the side of Don's lifeless body. He was astonished when he witnessed Don actually returning to life. Dark, testing months of painful surgery lay in store, but Don brought back with him vivid memories of a very real dimension of God's reality. Welcome, Don. You're actually a living miracle.
I am a living miracle, and I'm utterly delighted and very honored to be with you today.
Well, it's fantastic to have you. I know this was some years ago now, and you've gradually been able to piece together what actually happened. What did happen?
Well, I was returning from a conference, a church conference. I was a pastor at the time, and literally on my way to church to do some services. I left one Wednesday morning, headed back to make sure I was in the church by that afternoon. And not more than 10 minutes out of the front gate of the conference center, about 90 miles or so, 120, 30 kilometers from my church, a large truck, lorry, 18-wheeler, crossed the center stripe. I was driving a very small car, and we had a head-on collision on a bridge, rural bridge, and I was killed instantly by the impact of the truck.
I mean, when you say you were killed instantly, that wasn't just an assumption made by one of the medics there. You actually were tested and pronounced dead.
As a matter of fact, the truck was actually a prison truck driven by a prisoner who had been given, he was a trustee, he had been entrusted with the opportunity to drive the truck. He was followed by two policemen in another vehicle, so they were watching him. They saw the accident. They, of course, left their vehicle, came over to where I was, examined me, and called for backup because he was a prisoner. And so in a matter, it was a very rural area, very isolated area. So in a matter of perhaps a half an hour, 4 different sets of ambulance, EMT, emergency medical technician, equipped vehicles arrived, and they all conducted tests on me, EKGs.
They all tested you?
They all did. There were other people involved in the accident. No one else was seriously injured. So while they were moving around from vehicle to vehicle, testing people, they came to me and they did portable EKGs, testing for heartbeat and all the other equipment they had, and they all determined that I was deceased, and as a matter of fact, even covered me up with a waterproof tarp because all the windows of the car, of course, had been knocked out of the car, and it was a very gruesome sight. So they just kind of covered...
So you were well and truly gone.
I was gone and covered up, and they waited for an official to come and release the body so it could be taken to a mortuary.
Wow, wow. I mean, I have to ask these questions because obviously that's the first thing people would assume. Well, you hadn't really died, your life was maybe ebbing away, and then it came back. But you did sustain horrendous injuries. What actually happened to you, Don?
Well, when the truck came over the car, it literally just kind of traveled over the top of the car because of the speed with which he was driving and the head-on collision. And literally 9 wheels on the truck passed over the car. And when that happened, the dash of the car came across my right leg and crushed it, just struck right above the left knee and actually imploded the leg so that 4 inches of femur were ejected from the leg and never found. So it's not connected anymore from top to bottom.
Oh my word.
The left shoulder is separated, and it went over my head, and the arm from this point forward was lying in the back seat of the car.
Oh.
The steering wheel impaled me in the chest, and then the roof of the car collapsed on my head so that I had, although it was dry because my heart had stopped bleeding, I had blood coming out of my ears and eyes and nose, all indications of massive brain damage. So I was horribly mangled by the accident, and really no one could have or should have survived.
And yet, extraordinarily, this minister, what was his name, Dick Honorecker?
Dick Honorecker, yes.
He really felt compelled by the Lord to stop and pray by your lifeless body.
Indeed,
he sort of fought his way to doing that.
The traffic was backed up for directions in both areas because this was a small rural bridge. There was no other way to go. So people got out of the cars. He and his wife, they had attended the same conference I did, but I did not know him. They walked up to the bridge where the accident occurred and said, "Can we be of any assistance? I'm a minister. Can I pray with someone?" And he was told there was no one to pray for. Everyone else had been dispatched. I was in the car and I was deceased. And Dick Honorecker said that immediately when he was told that. He said he heard the voice of God. God spoke to him and said, "Pray for the man in the red car," which would have made no sense to him theologically. A dead man? Why pray for a dead person? He believed that, honestly. But he also knew what he heard, and it was a compelling voice. And it said, "Pray for the man in the red car, my car." And so he went over to the authorities and said, "I need to pray for this man." And they said, "Well, you obviously have misunderstood, sir. He's deceased."
Yeah, he's gone.
He said, "God told me to pray for him. Is there any way I can get in the car?" They finally relented after much haggling and gave him permission to do it. He got in the car and he began to pray for me inside the car under the waterproof tarp, and prayed and prayed and prayed and sang hymns. Prayed and sang hymns, so that from impact at 11:45 a.m. until some 90 minutes later, he's praying and singing in the car.
And there was a particular theme in his prayers, wasn't there? That he prayed that you would be protected from some particular injuries.
He did. Obviously, he prayed for life, but he also prayed for a meaningful life. He wasn't just praying that I would survive. And we know a lot of people survive tragic and difficult circumstances, but without much quality of life. He was praying for unseen things. He could see that the arms and the legs were disconnected, but he knew that I was impaled on the steering wheel, and he also knew that my head had been crushed. So he prayed for my head and my internal organs, that I would be okay, and then he prayed for life. So there was very much a theme, and it was for not just survival, but a meaningful survival.
Absolutely, which is a very bold prayer for somebody who was crushed in front of you and under a tarpaulin.
It is a bold prayer.
What were the signs, Don, that you were beginning to return to life?
Well, I didn't have any signs myself. I mean, I wasn't.
What could Dick see?
He was in the car and he was singing a great old hymn, "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." And the lyric of that hymn is, "Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer." And so as he sang that song in the car, 90 minutes after the collision, I started singing with him in the car.
Amazing.
And he left the car very quickly.
Amazing.
Yes.
Wow. Well, let's just break at this very tantalising point, Don, and let's catch up on a little bit of background.
Right.
I know that you were a minister, as you say.
Yes.
Before then, I believe you were a TV executive.
I was. I had another life before ministry. I actually graduated from college with a degree in broadcasting, and for years had many opportunities in front of and behind the cameras. I was in television sales, which place all those commercials.
Can you give me a quick burst of that TV voice?
Well, I used to sit in the booth and say things like, "This is the CBS television network," you know, those kinds of things.
Fantastic,
Yes.
yeah.
And but I got over it. I got over the whole television thing. It was a wonderful career, and I enjoyed it immensely. But I always felt like I had a call, and some things happened in the industry that caused me to really believe that maybe it was time to really seek God's face. And even though I had a lot of fun doing commercials and doing all those other things, God opened the opportunity for me to begin ministry. And so in 1984, that's exactly what I did.
And you went into ministry. You married and you've got children?
I have a wife of 32 years, and I have three wonderful children who are really the heroes of this story. My wife is Eva, and I have a daughter, Nicole, and I have twin boys that are now 25 years old. They are Christopher and Joseph. And I survived, but they endured. They're the ones who were with me all the way through this.
Fine. So if we go back now to the scene of the crash, you had died.
Yes.
And what people could see there was just a very